Ta-da! Hola community, welcome to Blender Today Live at episode 257. We skipped one. I couldn't, I wasn't in a good shape to stream, but that made it so I was sick, basically. In a good shape. It doesn't mean I am in a good shape now, but I'm able to let you know about everything new in Blender since the last 4 weeks. And oh my gosh, there are like, at first I wanted to call this episode VULKAN because that's like the big thing that is now no longer experimental, spoiler alert. Then there are updates in Sculpt or the Compositor, like almost all nodes, or like the most popular nodes now are much more powerful. The modeling tool, like geometry nodes, there's new experimental settings. There is like almost every module has had its own bits of updates since the last time we saw each other. Today, it was going to be a day to announce a new version of 4.4, a corrective release, but that will have to wait until maybe later this week, I think. There's no final date yet, but probably soon, Thursday or next week. Follow the socials. We're gonna let you know how it goes. By the way, on YouTube, we are usually posting as Blender on this channel, like news. I don't know if you check the community posts section on mobile. I know it's pretty easy to access. I don't know on desktop, but other than that, we have some news as well. This is related to the Blender Conference 2025. Tickets are halfway sold out. So the conference, the biggest and coolest conference related to Blender, the Blender conference here in Amsterdam, is going to take place in like less than 5 months, in September 17 to 19 for the very first time. The tickets are halfway sold out. There is already like 300 and something, I just checked, tickets sold out of 600-700. So just make sure you save your spot. And also, if you're going to be presenting at the conference, if you want to present at the conference, you can already. In the homepage, you're going to find the Submit Talk button, which takes you to the call for participation. You can present at the conference. You can make a theater talk, a studio talk if you are using Blender in a studio environment, classroom if you want to teach, if you want to do a workshop, or the attic if you're a developer and want to go full developer, like, and expect that people in the audience are going to understand what you're saying. The this option also is available here in the header. Now, for the first time, we moved it up here because there's also the Suzanne Awards Festival entry. So if you have a short film that you are you want to present at the Suzanne Award, if you can't make it to this is worldwide for the presentation, the talks, you have to be here at the conference, and you get a little discount on your ticket as well. But the Suzanne Awards Festival entry can be anywhere in the world. So if you have any shorts, films, make sure that you submit it. The deadline, I think, is later this year, so you have some time. It must be somewhere here on that page. The deadline for the submissions, though, that one is June 16th. But the Suzanne Awards is like late, almost a week. No, 2 weeks, because we need some time to the community needs some time to vote for the nominees, so there will be there is time. Okay, what else? Another thing I wanted to mention, is I think Vulcan Suzanne Awards content. I have here my my list of things we're gonna talk about, but there's so many that let's just get started because it's a lot. So let's see what are the what's new in Blender today. So this is between April 1st and April 29th because it covers the last 4 weeks, because I didn't do it. We do Blender Today every other week, and I skipped one. Over 800 commits, but I'm only gonna cover like 10% of that, 80 something only. The ones that I'm gonna cover, by the way, this list is available on Blender Today. So if you go to blender.community, the Blender Today, there is a link. It's also on the description. You can see the whole list of things that I'm going to be talking about today. All right, what else? Was Blender Heads out last time we talked? Yeah, end of March. So yeah, I probably already mentioned this. Let's move on to the what's new in Blender today. Let's start with animation. So animation, there is we start in order. This list is huge, but I'm gonna start in alphabetical order. The ones that I'm gonna talk about are highlighted with this little icon here. So animation, pose mode, select mirror, keeps and mirror selected. So when you select the mirror options, the ones that cannot be mirrored are gonna stay selected, so it makes it easy to, for example, you can select the spine and the left arm, and then you can select the opposite side because the spine doesn't have a mirrorable, you know what I mean? So nice usability change. The snapping options in the graph editor were changed a long time ago in Blender time, so not really that long ago, but there was a change that made the snapping options not tied to a specific editor, and by editor I mean like area. So if you had the graph editor, you turn on snapping, and then you open another graph editor, snapping will be off. It will be different there. So that change made it so it's global to the entire scene, so you only enable it once. Great. However, the driver editor didn't have this feature, so now it has its own snapping flag because the driver editor doesn't have keyframes, and as in like a timeline of keyframes. It's a separate thing, right? It's values of your driver, so it makes sense. Next, you can add, there's a new function to batch create many F curves, and that is in use in the USD import. It's also quite fast. It's actually been improved, and performance has been improved to something I used to take about 2 seconds, now 0.9 seconds. Nice. We're gonna see a lot of performance improvements today. The other update that is relevant to you regarding animation and the graph editor is that the keyframe jump operator, it's now unified. So maybe you didn't notice, but in order to fix a bug report, the keyframe jump operator, so basically when you press, what is it, up and down to go to the next keyframe, you can tag that to any shortcut you want. But there were some issues because it was 2 operators, because the graph editor works differently than the dope sheet, for example. So that was fixed, and now that is fixed too. So now you can assign one shortcut to all the keyframe jump operators. Let's move to A4 assets. Assets. The tag a brush for unsaved changes when its texture changes. So this is a bug fix, kind of. It's an usability improvement. So when you change the texture, the brush wouldn't be tagged for unsaved changes. So it would look like nothing changed. So yeah, you could lose some settings. That has been fixed. Nice. Then the snap feedback for dragging collections has been disabled for collections without, when you're linking a collection without collection instancing, because it doesn't make any sense. You just bring the entire collection and it uses the object origin. It's not instance. So the snapping was an issue there. It was giving you bad feedback. Too much feedback. Okay. Next, auto space. Yeah, the audio library in Blender is a fix, but I just wanted to mention, because if you notice anything strange with the audio, I think there was an issue where this is trying to fix, where the audio would freeze or hang when playing audio. So that has been fixed. So if you notice anything weird, or if you had issues playing back audio where Blender will hang, give it a try. All right, we move to I shouldn't double click on things. Okay, if you we move to B for build, and this is a little sneak peek of the topic we're going to be covering later today, which is the Manifold library. So the Manifold library, we're going to cover it later. But basically, it's a new library in Blender. It's new. It's been around for a while. That is focused on robustness. So its focus mainly is on meshes that are that are manifold, so they're enclosed, they're watertight, and it's super fast. So it is being used in other areas that we're going to see later, but just a heads up, Manifold is a library that is being used in I think Nomad Sculpt uses it. It's very popular there, and it works on an iPad. So imagine how fast it is. Well, I mean, iPads are much faster than most regular computers nowadays, I think. So that's not a benchmark. All right, let's go past the CMake changes, the cleanups. So many cleanup. Blender is so clean. You may notice that I have, again, in the past, I used to just skip those and just have a very short list of things that I would talk about. And now I'm not skipping any of that. I'm just showing you all that 800 changes that happened during the last week, because I want to give credit to everything that has happened. Even sometimes developers, I mean, they're cleaning space. Sometimes it's just format trading space, but sometimes they're like rewrites and trying to make the code more easy to understand. This one is huge. This is a cleanup. It's a feature that was I mean, it's huge. It's not huge. Nothing will change for you, but it's a hack that was added during Durian, the open movie Durian, which is Sintel. The project was Sintel was used to test 2.5, basically to improve Blender 2.5, take it from 250 to 256 out of alpha and beta and all that. And there was an option there called Durian Switch, which was a hack, to use the bind camera to markers to make them work as you're used to. Basically, that was a hack from back then, and now it's gone. So piece of memory is leaving Blender. However, you know what's cool? It's the compositor. The compositor, I mean, it was already cool in 4.4 with the new CPU compositor full frame. But now there is so many usability improvement. Like, look at this list. It's just, yeah. The changes that are now here available give you so much flexibility. Let's start with the new nodes, right? New options in nodes. Something that is new. The interpolation option is now available in the scale node and in the corner pin node. This allows you to change, for example, the change between usually interpolation modes like nearest, bilinear, bicubic when scaling. So you can choose to go for quality or for speed, or maybe you just like one look or the other. Now, brace yourself, because this is a feature that people have been requesting for a while, which is GPU Open Image Denoiser. Okay, enough. Yes, people have been requesting this for a long time. It was only CPU, but now it is GPU. Open Image Denoise provides like the best, I think the best, or one of the best denoising algorithms in Blender right now. So it gives you quality, it gives you detail in the tiniest and most I don't know what they do. AI. That's the one part that Blender has AI. Open Image Denoiser is now available in the GPU. So let's see it in Blender actually. Since we are here, the option is available under Performance and Compositor, and here you will see the noise nodes. Why the noise nodes? It could be just the noise, right? We are in the Compositor, but anyways, the option is here. Now, it used to just give you just be CPU, but now it's auto, which will basically follow whatever device you're using. So if you have this to GPU, then this should go to GPU, but you can always force it to be GPU. And yeah, you will notice the difference. There's also a few options, but you are probably familiar with this. The preview quality and final quality for this. Final is when you press F12 and you render, and the preview is what you see in the interactive mode. Let's see what else. Well, there is you can read the blog post if you want to see all the intricate points of this on the definition descriptions. The next is UI stuff. Gizmo for the box mask node. You can now edit and interactively the box mask. So you select the node and the gizmo will show up here in the background, and you can just use it to adjust your mask. Very intuitive. Blender already has gizmos for these kind of things, for the backdrop and for other mask nodes. But yeah, nice user-friendly features. And I lost your chat. By the way, I'm looking at the chat. I have it here on the side. Saludo Miguel and everyone. Thanks for dropping by. I will try to. Is the soundbar too loud? I can lower it. Actually, I have it 30. Okay, there. I just lowered it. Sorry. Next. Implement gizmo. Oh, okay. Another node that implements the same gizmo, which is the ellipse mask node. This is a circular ellipse, and you can just move it around like you would expect, like a modern software from the from the past century. I think they were doing this in the 90s too. But hey, look at this nice anti-alias. Let's continue. All right, so you will notice here that the last item is the only item that has 1 star, but basically this will go to everything, because let's just tackle one of them. There are a lot of them. Let's just tackle one. So make rotate star 45 option as an input. What's that? Let me show you. In the compositor, there is a node called glare, which you may know and may love if you've been using Blender and the latest, the most recent options in Blender, and especially if you miss the bloom, because that's the only way to get bloom nowadays. All right, so the glare node, if you use the simple start mode, there is an option called, well, it was called 45 degree. 40, no, not suppress. It was called 45 degree. But now that option, that was hard coded to basically take the star and tilt it 45 degrees. So it was very non-flexible. But now that is an input. So you can, no, it shouldn't be this, it should be somewhere else. Where is it? Here, let's look at the code. Pull request. And there is not a single image. Why? Rotate star 45 option in the glare node into an exposed input. So basically you can connect there anything and it will rotate the input. So if you go to diagonal star, it's a, but as if it's a boolean. I thought it would be a value. Okay, so it's not align the star diagonally. So it's an input, it's a boolean, so you can make it, well, I guess you can rotate this with another node. Okay, makes sense. But this is a boolean that now it's no longer just a toggle, and you probably notice that most options are are sockets now since the 4.4, and this is the one that was missing, I believe. So this concept of turning an option into a socket for flexibility is now applied to the whole planet. Bokeh image options, timecore, mask, switch, split node, see combine and invert, tone mapping, even, pixelate, dilate, in paint, Kuwahara node. Let's see the Kuwahara, just because I want to say that word multiple times. So every option in Kuwahara except the typo is now a socket. So you can go crazy with this. The uniformity, the sharpness, eccentricity, pixelate. This one is also nice. I had this in the past where I wanted to have some control over what to pixelate and try to drive this. So yes, we love our inputs, like Pimen says. We love inputs. Then the speckle, denoise, anti-alias, vector blur, channel chroma, a bunch of all the keynotes, ID mask, plane track, color correction, and lens distortion. Okay, lens distortion is one of my favorite nodes, so let's see it. Nice. So you may notice, what is this dropdown? Well, this lets you choose between two types of them. Before it would be just, you can just choose to make it horizontal or not. Now it's an enum, so it's an option. And then you can just have this as inputs. Before, it only the image used to be an input, and now you can turn on and off things via inputs. So cool. Another feature that will ease the workflow for people coming from Eevee and missing the bloom is that the bloom option. So okay, so let's see. So what is the workflow right now? If you wanted to have if you wanted to add some bloom to your image, you have to first search for glare. That already not very user-friendly, because I want bloom, I don't want a glare. So okay, and then you have to change to bloom. Searching is still not possible. Sorry, if I search for bloom, it's still not possible. That should be tackled. However, what is tackled is that when you drag a socket, when you drag like a color socket that is compatible, you can actually now search for bloom, and it will connect it. It will automatically choose the bloom option and any other option: ghost, streaks, fog glow, simple stars. If you want to feel like a star, you just do a star, and then you get simple star. So this is possible, and for the same for bloom. The search bloom is still not there. But hey, one step at a time. Yay, cool. Let's see. Actually, this one change, this bloom, is a reason why 4.4.2 was crashing. So if, by the way, I need to go full screen for this. If you use Steam, Microsoft Store, if you get Blender from Steam, Microsoft Store, or one of those apps that, like launcher apps that get Blender from places, you may notice that Blender 4.4.2 is available. I do not recommend that you get it, because there is one crash when you try to do any compositing. If you don't do compositing, yes, but why even bother? Wait a day or two, and you're gonna get Blender 4.4.3. And well, now I'm using 4.5 alpha, but 4.4.3, and actually I could show you. Let's be completely transparent. Here is Blender 4.4.2, which is not released officially, but it wasn't announced because it contains a bug that you will see right now. Drag, drop, and Blender crashes. So yeah, it's a known issue, and you will get Blender 4.4.3 soon. Soon. You know that yeah, it's a pity, but that's what happens when you try to add features that are not just bug fixes. Like this thing of the bloom thing, it was so nice that developers wanted to add this to 4.4.2 because it's just tiny. However, there was a bug and it crashed, and now we have to wait for 4.4.3. Development, yay. So we skip 4.4.2. Yes, please skip 4.4.2. Just ignore it and wait a day or two, and you're gonna get 4.4.3. Okay, time to move on. The other changes, let's go to core. There are a few core changes, as in core, it's everything is like libraries and Blender saving blend file data and stuff. The core changes this time are two. One, well, that I find relevant to tell you. One is the option to relocate this is, it has to do with library linking, like library override, library linking. When you know, in the outliner we have a list of libraries, that objects that you are linking, and you see the library and you want to relocate that, you want to move it. Say you imported something from the desktop really bad, and you move it to the downloads folder, which is even worse, but yeah, well, you can. There is an option to relocate. You right click on the library and you can relocate it to somewhere else. This would work for the entire library, but now you can actually relocate individual IDs, which is fantastic. It's very, maybe it's a bit technical, maybe you're never linked stuff, but a lot of work has been put into the library system, and then, you know, there are productions that use it, like the ones downstairs. Okay. Why are people saying Vulcan? Yeah, sorry. So I live in the Netherlands, and the V is V sometimes. So I often say Vulcan. I say Vulcan because in Spanish V and B are the same. Like they are not the same. We just say the same wrongly, but we say the same. So sorry if I mix stuff. Okay. All right. New experimental option, which maybe you shouldn't turn on yet, or unless you really need it. Okay. Ever ran into the limitation that Blender could not save files with buffer data, like inside of the blend file, that is larger than 2 gigabytes? Very niche, very niche. Ever run into that issue? Well, if you have, Blender now has an option to allow writing data in the experimental settings. So you go to Developer Extras, Experimental, Write Large Blend File Blocks. However, let me go full screen just to get your attention. That one option, if you really need it, turn it on. In Blender 5, it will be on. So it eventually will happen. However, this means that files will, we're gonna get a lot more data than 2 gigs, which means that older Blender files, or Blender versions, older as 4.4 and older, are not gonna be able to save that. Blender 4.5 LTS will support it. That's why it gets added now, even though Blender 5 is a few months away still. We are, this feature gets added now, so Blender 4.5 and 5.0 files are compatible. However, just know that if you save files with this option, then they're not gonna be compatible with Blender. All the Blender versions are not gonna be able to open them. Okay, next, curves. Oh my. We haven't seen the word nerves in a while. The commit goes as follows. So curves. So this is a new data block. Custom nerves knots. Knots. Basically, so knots. This option is a attribute basically that it's stored in the blend file in the curves geometry. It's not exposed yet, and it's only used by the OBJ importer. So it is to support meshes that nerves that come from other software and into Blender, just to read them. Eventually this will be exposed, but for the time being it's just added support. And there's an optimization. There are multiple optimizations. One of them, this one by Matthias Fredriksson, is related to curves and the evaluation of tangents info data. So there is a performance improvement that on a single curve with over 800,000 points, so quite a beefy curve, the performance was around 1.43 times. So an example, something that used to take 33 milliseconds to calculate now is 23 milliseconds. So yay for optimizations. Next, let's switch into cycles. In cycles, there are also optimizations for the noise texture of 3D and for the noise. In this case, the optimization brings, it's a modest optimization, about 10% on macOS, and on Linux, it's about 18% faster to calculate 3D and 4D noise. It is only limited to 3D and 4D noise. Noise. Nice noise. All right, you know what else is nice? This feature, and this again, oops. This is kind of a really cool feature. I want to get your attention again. OSL, Open Shading Language, allows you to write shaders of all sorts of stuff. These shaders are not just materials. They can be pretty much anything, including cameras. Ever been limited by the cameras in Blender, by the depth of field? You don't get that nice realistic depth of field. That some people even made their own cameras using shaders in Blender, like glass shaders, and just to get the fully realistic. Anyways, with Open Shading Language cameras, you can get pretty much anything you want, and also make it compatible with other software. And this opens up possibilities for interoperability and make cycles have a similar look with cameras that are imported from other places, for more realism, for example. Let's see what is the problem. For a long time, cycles had a fairly fixed set of cameras: perspective, orthographic, and a few panorama options. But now, this is no longer sufficient. Just during the 2024 conference, I've been asked about adding new panorama cameras. The central cylindrical projection was added some time ago, and there is a new request for adding fisheye 624 model and new distortion models. For VFX workflows, you want to distort it in different ways, different models that are applied to specific camera, like in real life, real cameras. Realistic lens models, for example. So there has been many requests. The solution is to basically add Open Shading Language, a generic shader type that allows you to achieve this. And there are limitations, of course. Open Shading Language is not new, but it's only supported on CPU and optics. But I think there was some work being done, and it has a reputation of being slow in cycles. Yep. And it's technically not intended for this sort of application. It just works fine, what the developer said. And there are some examples here, and there are some examples too. Like this is how, for example, a depth of field look will does now in Blender in cycles. So this is the depth of field, and this is the new, like this is by using. So this is with the camera shader, as you can see. It's a lot more realistic, I would say, where Cycles 1 is a lot more homogeneous, I guess, like, and writing a shader actually makes it, but basically the limit, the sky is the limit, right? It's actually pretty nice. This looks almost fake. So why are you making cycles look fake? But yeah, you can tell the difference. Okay, I mean, there is a different amount of depth of field, but it looks so cool. And I guess it's also easier to share, because Open Shading Language is this. It's just text. So if it's just very easy to find examples online of people sharing this kind of shaders. So cool. Are Open Shading Language files assets, or could they be assets? Nice. So regarding render times, the camera shader is actually faster than the native camera. Okay, so it's not a penalty apparently. Nice. I need to read this entire thing, so make sure you check it out as well. Next, We continue with cycles. There's some interop with Vulcan and metal graphics optimizations. Not optimization, but like code under the hood between CUDA and Vulcan. They add support for automatic bump mapping on Open Optics OSL. This is actually a bug fix where when using Open Shading Language, the displacement and bump setting was not working. But that should fix it. So nice. All right, let's continue. There's a bunch of dependency changes with the new libraries, with dropped libraries in Blender, with depth graph changes. Is there any optimizations here that I missed? Yeah, little optimizations from 1.18 times for the depth graph. The depth graph, dependency graph in Blender, that's the heart of Blender. So anything that you see related to optimizations there, it's always a good news no matter what you do. Animation, modeling, tech, like always good news to see improvements in the depth graph. It's also scary because being the heart, if the heart fails, let's continue. More optimizations, the draw code. Now Blender will skip the empty passes, which could provide small performance improvement. Switching to Eevee, there are improvements to shadows. They removed the shadow ray horizon clipping, which basically was making these kind of issues. I don't know if you get to see it, but if you ever run into this, like artifacts where you see the shadow comes this way and then it's like broken and then back, or these glitches where there were like light spots in the what should be shadows, well, that has been fixed. It's a bug fix, but I like to mention it just in case you run into these issues before. The Shadow Terminator Normal Bias, this is a new option which implements a task from a long, well, not that long actually, but Shadow Terminator issues have been around for a while. The Shadow Terminator is what mostly when you have low resolution meshes, this also Cycles also has a Shadow Terminator setting, and this should improve this. Basically, bad shadows or transitions between the light and the shaded part, which is that's a Terminator, not related to Arnold Schwarzenegger, this part. So, nice. Next. Fixes, so many fixes. Crashes, Grace Pencil, like these are all unreported. I guess about this one, but these are all unreported fixes. They just found them and fixed them, and then we arrive to the list of, and then the amount of fixes, and then we arrive to the list of actually reported issues. Wow, crazy. Okay. What else? GPU improvements, but we're gonna move past them because otherwise I'm never gonna finish this episode. Let's talk about geometry nodes. There are a number of new nodes and improvements to existing nodes. So the new node, many new nodes. One of them is match string node. Basically search and match. It will give you a boolean as a result if it matched or not. So if it starts with a string or ends with a string, or if it contains a string. So it's one node with 3 modes. Nice. How far are we from a if then if check? Well, this is kind of an if statement. Actually, it is basically for attribute names. Set Grease Pencil Color is a new node that allows you to set the Grease Pencil color. It was already possible to write to the color and opacity attributes, but this required some user to know the names of the built-in attributes. Then this one doesn't. So nice. I knew folk would make nice pictures and screenshots for me to show you here. So nice. I can show you here how it looks. Set grease pencil color, and a drop down has an input for grease pencil selection and color itself and the opacity of it. They're all fields, and maybe this could even be inlined. Or maybe it is inline because there are changes related to that. The grease pencil in and out, these two sockets. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just hang on for a bit. New nodes. Field statistic nodes. There is actually 3 new nodes in Blender geometry nodes for statistics, similar to attribute statistics. This is the field version of those. It's 3 new nodes. One is called field average, field min and max, and field variance. 3 nodes. So cool. You see, people are happy about the screenshots. Yay. Let's more screenshots to the people, to the power, to the... Add another node, grease pencil related, to set the depth order of your layer, I guess. No, of the grease pencil, 2 options. Layers and 3D location. So the actual location in 3D and the 2D layers themselves. So you can set the order for your layers in the grease pencil object. This is a must. Nice. The other new node is called Instance Bounds. This one by Cartesian Caramel, which if you follow them on social media, you know that this person knows what they're doing. And not only with great art, but also code, apparently. So the current issue is the bounding box node does not output the minimum and maximum vector for each instance, but only realize geometry. So basically this is the current workaround. Very user-friendly. You have to remember all this. But now there is a new node for it. And this is a new node that calculates the instance bounds from the geometry sets. So one node, and it gives you the bounds minimum and maximum as vector fields. Nice. So the performance is 19 milliseconds faster than the workaround. Not bad. And instance stacking is greatly simplified with this, I guess, by just having the instance bound, because it's a field. I guess you accumulate the field, add, and set the position for each one of them in the collection. Nice. So cool. Awesome. Thank you, Cartesian Caramel. And more nodes, however, these are experimental, so use handle with care and use at your own risk. So basically, there's two new types of nodes. One of them are bundles, bundle of nodes, and the other one, actually 2 socket types, and the other ones are closures, which are like functions that you can pass around as data. How do I know that? Well, by reading the blog post that was posted in November last year. After the Blender conference, they had a workshop here at the Blender HQ where they discussed that, and you can read more about closure and bundles. So basically here, bundles, you can bundle up geometry. In this case, you have a cube, cylinder, the multiple domains, makes a bundle. You can pass it around and then separate it, similar to separate and combine XYZ or vector nodes. Super nice when they use Blender lingo and you learn things only once. And closures are, in programming, the term closure refers to functions which may be passed around as data and can capture variables from where they are created. We have not found a good alternative name yet, so what would you name it? What was the industry standard name for this sort of sockets? So in this case, well, it is not the most exciting example, just setting a position, but basically this is one function that you pass around as data. Let's continue. Next. Oh, by the way, if you want to turn this on and try it for yourself, you can from the user preferences, experimental bundle and closure nodes. Once you add this in, you should be able to see, to try the, where are the nodes, utility maybe, or just search for it. Close. Maybe you need to read. I'm in the compositor. Maybe a geometry nodes setup is not going to show up in the compositor. I have a feeling. The combine and the bundles are here and the closures are here. Closure, evaluate, and nice. Okay. There's even a new theme option. Actually, I found out about it because of the theme options. I was updating the light theme and I saw, hey, there's a new theme option for closures. What are closures? Okay, the zones, so simulation zones, repeat zone, all the zones now support link, drag, search. So you can, what I showed you before with the glare node, well, now also supported for the geometry nodes zones. Grease pencil layer name, search. You can now search grease pencil layers. No, you don't have to type them by hand anymore. Yay. Usability feature. The layer selection UI slightly updated and uses a slightly larger default width for the name layer selection node. Uses the layer icon in the field and uses the layer placeholder. So all the nice and expected UX improvements. Thank you, Vulcan. And more UI changes. So this is mostly a, wow. It's mostly a eye candy. However, you will notice how it makes notes a lot easier to read and they're more compact. They use less space. So this is before and this is after. And this is before and this is after. So can you tell the difference? The geometry nodes, geometry sockets in this case, when, for example, when you have mesh in, mesh out, instance in, instance, so when the domain doesn't change, it doesn't make sense to have this in two separate spots. You can just collapse them and now you have one socket, well, inline socket. So it's easy to read, it makes it much nicer. The same for values, the same for sockets where it makes sense. This has to be done one by one. So it was done with care by one of the main developers of geometry nodes. So they know what they're doing. And there's 3 more nodes that actually were missing from this scale elements, case instance, and the set grease pencil color, which is the one we just mentioned. Nice. It's much easier to read. Okay, let's move to grease pencil. A bunch of changes. Actually, all of them are very relevant, and 2 of them are my favorite personal ones. Well, this is also pretty cool. Ever notice grease pencil having not the best anti-aliasing ever? Like sometimes there were some edges that were a bit jaggy. Well, that has been improved. There is a new anti-aliasing algorithm for grease pencil, accumulation anti-aliasing. So yeah, it's a new, more accurate anti-aliasing to the grease pencil render engine. So you see, this alone would have been the name for the grease pencil. Actually, no, the feature that I'm going to show you later for this episode would have been a great name. This new anti-aliasing algorithm doesn't replace the existing one. It's still used, the old one is still used for the viewport, and this one is used for rendering. It's only available for rendering actually, so that's where you're gonna see the difference. Only when you render. You can read more here in the pull request. And next, when switching to when smoothing, when you hold shift to smooth, when you're using grease pencil and you hold shift to smooth, now we'll use the smooth brush setting when you use this. Nice. Thank you, Yiming Wu. Next, the Python related. The Bezier handle selection is now exposed in the Python API for all the add-on developers there. All right, my two favorite changes this week. They come from Yiming Wu. One of them, well, they're both related to compositing. Have you ever wanted to composite grease pencil? Like have it as a separate entity. Now, until now, it was always just the one thing, and you had to do all sorts of tricks to be able to manipulate them in the compositor. Not anymore. There is a new option now in the filter of the view layer. This is all compositing, so it's in the view layer settings filter. There's a new option called grease pencil, which allows you to, and there's a way that you can disable volumes, curves, surfaces. Now you can disable or enable the rendering of grease pencil, which means you can have a, let me open this here, view layer. So filtering, you see now you can have, say you want a view layer that it's only grease pencil. Now you can. Or the other way around, you want another one that is just everything but grease pencil. So you can have like no grease pencil, and then you make another one. You know, you copy the settings and then you just call it grease pencil, and then you only have grease pencil. So the possibilities are endless, and the reasons to use other compositors shrinks. You know what else you can do with grease pencil now? You can render it as a separate pass. In the passes panel, you can enable or disable grease pencil. So say I have this beautiful cube and I'm gonna add a beautiful Suzanne, grease pencil Suzanne. And now say I enable grease pencil as a pass, and then I render, and this is, I need to enable CPass. Maybe it should always show up. Anyway, grease pencil, now I have this as a separate pass, and I can disable, I can have just a pass for grease pencil. Still shows up in the combine, so you can turn on all the other ones and build your own separate view layer for this, but this is awesome. I love it. And of course, this is available as a, of course, I'm in the other view layer. There you go, as a view grease pencil, so I can just see it here. So cool. Can do anything. So this is the entire grease pencil pass, but in the future there are plans of maybe, you know, splitting this in parts. Maybe you could have a new panels here that says grease pencil, and then you can have grease pencil strokes, fills, or effects, you name it. Could be. Oh, so cool. Rocket Horse says, hey everyone, I'm late. Did I miss anything big? Yeah, well, yeah, you missed some. Well, depends, because there's so many areas like compositor. Well, if you like the compositor, or if you use grease pencil, now you can composite grease pencil as a separate pass. That to me would have been enough for an entire Blender Today talking about just grease pencil, just calling it grease pencil. Anyway, let's move into huge news, such as there is a new language supported in Blender. You know which one? British. Yep, British English is now supported. So the English option in the menu now is called American English, and there is now a new British English option. Where is the British English? Like, let's see if it's translate.blender.org. If I go here, do I see already Blender UI in, how far is it in the English UK? 99%. Are they cheating? Or was it already there and it was now exposed? As in, did they just copy the American one and then search and replace for all the... Wow. So cool. Yeah. All right. So, Aussie, Australians, it's your time now to Canadian English, to add your own. Okay. How many Spanish we have, by the way? You have Spanish, Spain, and Latin America, or not? American English, like it doesn't even fit now. American English. Okay, we have. Yeah, this doesn't fit. So in the we only have English, Spanish from Spain. At least we don't have Spanish US, which is so weird to me to see that when in the app when they let you choose Spanish US, Spanish. Time to pirate. Oh, yeah, pirate translations. Okay, let's move on. Image buffer section. Yes, that is a. Oh, wait. I'm missing actually something pretty big. There is a new FBX importer. Raise your hand if you use FBX, because there is a new experimental, which I think it should be just. Maybe this should be the or maybe for 5.0 it could be the default, and the other one called the Python one called legacy or deprecated, maybe, because the new FBX importer is C++ based, so it goes from 2 to 5 times faster, and yeah, just better in pretty much every way. There are a few features that are missing, but it seems that based on community feedback, these options were not really used that much anyways, so they were not ported. So if you try it out, if you are going to import something, go to File, Import, and then you will see FBX. Well, here, File, Import, FBX Experimental, and try it out, because maybe the description could show. I think the description is the same. Load an FBX files. I know it's called import FBX into the current scene. Yeah, maybe the tooltip, we could change it to actually explain why it's experimental, like what makes it experimental, and what to expect, maybe. Like you could say faster overall. I think we can assume it's gonna be faster. But anyway, try it out, please. And if you find anything missing, report it as a bug. It's gonna be addressed, or maybe there is a thread on DevTalk about FBX. Or maybe just report it, or coming to the chat .blender.org. Anyway, pretty big. So a lot of people use FBX still nowadays, unfortunately. They have to use it instead of more open source formats. All right, image buffer. 2 new changes in the image buffer. So basically how Blender handles images. One, internally. So one of them, the EXR images now support aspect ratio, as in they are written into the EXR image itself when you render when you press render. Gonna save the aspect ratio, so if you use it in other software and you had issues where the aspect ratio was a bit mixed, now they should work. And then I know everyone has been waiting for this. BMP images now support alpha transparency. So what year is it? Yes. Okay, maybe I can take this moment to explain maybe why this kind of things, why Blender developers investing time that I'm paying with my donations to add alpha to BMP images. Well, thing is, this is actually a cleanup. Blender in the past used to have its own BMP format, bitmap image, for like a importer exporter, basically. It's its own code to handle those, and that code didn't support alpha, so there was a setting to write alpha, or like to basically to address this. Not that long ago, a few years ago, Blender changed that to a library to leave all the image loading and saving to a library, an external library called OpenImageIO. This OpenImageIO library actually supports alpha. So by removing the code that was added because Blender's old system didn't support it, Now, yeah, Blender has a new feature. So by removing code, you have a new feature. So that's why sometimes you see these kind of things. It's like, why are Blender adding these kind of things? Yeah, now you know. Now you know. You know that person, that guy on social media is awesome. Now you know. Okay, next, library override. Improve resync when relocating linked data. This is also related to relocating feature that I mentioned before. This is, yeah, improved resyncing, basically. Next, oh, Linux. There are two small changes to Linux. If you had a folder that was called boot, that was started with the name boot, as in B-O-O-T, there were some issues because Blender would exclude that the slash boot point, mount point, and it would not show it. So yeah, that has been fixed. And also the EFI, the FE mount option is now hidden in the file browser. So you don't because the FE partition is usually somewhere you don't want to write into, especially from Blender. Anyways, okay, now this is pretty big also. This could have been the name of another BlenderToday episode. We're talking about mesh in general. There's some optimizations and a new feature that a lot of people have been waiting for, which is basically free custom normals. So free as in freedom, and they can go anywhere. The free normals, they are direction vectors in the object local space rather than the existing smooth corner fan space, basically. They're free, they can go anywhere. And they can be set with nodes. So if we go here, there is set mesh normal node and the normal input node. And we have some pictures here where you can specify this, basically, which is basically custom nodes, custom normals handling in geometry nodes, which is something that people have been requesting for a long while. Set my normals free, says Mr. Cuddle Fuzzle. Nice. All right. Pretty big. And yes, this is you can see the love that this pull request is getting. And it's actually, it was around for a while, and now it's been finally, like 3 months ago, started. In January 3rd. So right starting the year as a New Year resolution, Hans started this PR and now it's in Blender 4.5 LTS. Okay, next, two optimizations by Matthias Fredriksson. Well, one of them is by Matthias, one by Hans. This one, it adds parallelization, so nice multi-threading, to the corner to point domain adaptation, which means on a mesh with around 16 million vertices and a 4x4 matrix attribute interpolation, there is about a 4.5 times, like over 4.5 times performance improvement. Something that used to take 10 seconds now is 2 seconds or so. Not bad. Not bad at all. Thank you, Matthias. And thank you, Hans and Jack, for reviewing this. Super nice. There is people out there who just love performance, and we should be grateful for that, because probably takes a lot of headaches and need to know what you're doing. Such as Hans, who knows what he's doing and parallelize face to point domain adaptation similar to the previous commit. And this has, in this test, for example, or over nearly 7 times faster improvement in overall FPS for a 4x4 matrix attribute in this test. So nice. A bit less for float attributes and booleans. All right, now let's talk about modeling. We don't talk about modeling much. Well, this is related to what we should mention. However, modeling. Howard Tricky added a new option to the Boolean geometry node and the Boolean modifier. How about the operator also? Like, it doesn't mention it here, so I'm just checking. So if I get this thing and I search for Boolean, is there a new option? No, it's not there yet. However, it is in the modifier. So if you add a Boolean modifier, you'll notice that the solver has 3 options, which the order is a bit strange because it starts with float, exact, and manifold. Float is the old one that you know and love because it was super fast and it's good enough for some cases. Exact is slow, but it gives you really good results. It's very precise. Although sometimes I had better results with float than the exact. And the new one is called Manifold. And this is what I mentioned before with this new library that Blender has, which is the Manifold library by Ella Lish. Ethan, I think, Emmet Lalish. The same person who also brought us the Chronos tone mapper, the PVR tone mapper that was added to Blender a few versions ago, last year. Now, this person also made Manifold library, which is used in many places, many places. Blender one of them, but also Nomad Sculpt, as I mentioned before. Godot engine also adds it some versions ago, and other popular 3D apps and frameworks, Polygon.js, Valence 3D, many of them. So not bad. This is focused on performance and topological robustness. So I like the word robust. It's like the word robust is already robust. This new option in the Boolean modifier is not on by default. Actually, the default is the slowest one, exact. I wonder if we should change this default to be something else. Which one should be the default? Maybe manifold, because manifold is actually fast. It's the fastest one. It's faster than float, and it should work. Well, I'm not gonna use Suzanne here, but it is the fastest one of the bunch. And I don't know how can I test this with how could I test this thing? Anyway, wouldn't it be nice to have an option here to make this object, like to change the draw type of this object from the modifier itself, so you don't have to come here and change it to be wire, so you can actually see what you're doing when you have some specific types. But yeah, basically super nice as long as your mesh is watertight. I think it also works without it being watertight, but it's just the the results are different, and it's not guaranteed as in the manifold meshes. It's in the name, manifold, right? Yeah, Suzanne is not manifold. That's why I'm not gonna use Suzanne to the demo. And Suzanne is not manifold because the eyes, you may be familiar with this, that the eyes are the eyes can pop out. And to make my Suzanne manifold, we would have to like close this with like grid fill or something, and just it's not even gonna work because I need to use the edges from different sides, and this doesn't work. That's why I love Suzanne, because it's a good primitive to show how things can go wrong. We're gonna hear more about this manifold library soon. Next, let's talk about movies. Blender, or like, this is also very core. Completely changing topic. So okay, movies, as in Blender now supports ProRes codec videos. You can write codec ProRes codec videos. So again, more interoperability. I think 4.5 is going to be an amazing release for this. Like, so many additions already, and this is another one. Just so good. ProRes is a common intra-frame codec, post-production work. You can use on your phone. You can record ProRes, so Not bad. Alpha is supported along with 8-bit and 10-bit channel images. Cool. So nice. ProRes in Blender. Is that legal? Is ProRes? It's not open source for sure, but I guess it's legal because it comes from FFmpeg. So if FFmpeg supports it, then Blender too. Okay. Next. Nodes. Yeah. Okay. Again the pipe because it's a completely different topic. Nodes. The snapping of nodes changed recently. Actually, horizontal snapping was added to the let's see. Maybe I can open it in a new tab. Yeah. So recently, horizontal snapping was added to the nodes. However, vertical snapping wasn't. You can see snapping vertically just, well, doesn't really work until now when Leon made it work. So now it snaps correctly to the grid, as you can see. Beautiful. Beautiful. Next. Make spacing for panel toggle properties consistently with that of Boolean sockets. Yes, this one, it's just a visual improvement, but basically before and after makes it more slightly tighter. Just to connect values together. And the reference is this in this case. So thank you, Quackaruni. And more alignment of other nodes. 9 rotation nodes have been added. So in this case, it also makes it very clear: rotation, rotation, vector, vector, and now this is before, after, for. So nice. Next, for overlay. Again, this alone would have been the title of a BlenderToday episode. It's just a feature that people have been requesting for ages. Allow drawing of UVs in image editor in any mode. And actually, now that I think of it, this must be somewhere in right-click select, as in UV, like object mode. There must be somewhere UV editing multiple objects, display object. Okay, we marked it already as done. So, oh yeah, I did probably, and I added this and emoji. Now I remember. Yep, this feature has been requested. Like, had over 100 likes and upvotes on right-click select, and it had multiple other duplicates. So yeah, this has been implemented. And it's a very lengthy, not even clip. Oh no, okay. I don't think it's clipped to the right length, but it is a post by Tommyson that it just shows how much love and patience comes from the community. You can see they support 22 because this developer from the community, yeah, just went through this lengthy 2 months of reviews and testing and going back and forth. So super nice. The final result is something that people have been requesting, and it's almost expected that you are in edit mode and you see your layouts. You are in object mode and you also see the layout. It makes so much sense. Plus, if you select another object, you get both. Isn't that amazing? This is huge. People have been requesting this. Of course, if you don't want this, you can always disable it. It's an overlay setting where you can choose the face opacity or just hide them completely. No UVs. So nice. Thank you, Tommyson, for working on this and your patience for with this, and hope to see more things from you. Actually, I'm just gonna stalk your profile. What are you doing? Crashes, sculpt, texture paint, assign, fix. Oh, you're even fixing Blender. Like, thank you. All right. Next. Oh, Jonathan Lampel proposed a change, well, together with the Sculpt module, to reduce the default distance for the retopology overlay. And basically what how it used to be before and after. So before it used to be like this, and now after is like this. And you say, hey, this is overlapping. Yes, sometimes you want things to overlap. Actually, when you do retopology, you want the mesh to the overlay to overlap sometimes, so you know where that your mesh is close to what you're working on. The default was 0.2 and the new default is 0.01. The thing is, that was its metric, so 0.2 meters, so 20 centimeters. So if you were modeling a average human of 1.7 meter, 1.8 meter, I don't know what the average is. If you're in the Netherlands and higher, the average, yeah, that was like a human person, then 20 centimeters it's a long distance to have that overlay on your mesh. That has been changed, and now it's 0.01, which makes it work better in this case. You know what works well with 0.2, like the old value 0.2 works well in Suzanne or the default cube. So that shows yeah, that shows that the testing was maybe done with a default cube or a Suzanne, which is fine because things happen, and that's why it's important to have artists involved in the testing of these features. So thank you, Jonathan, for making the PR, and Sean for reviewing it, and the whole module and the community for testing. All right, next. Basics. All right, don't get too excited. Basics improvements, UI related. Two, basically when you are baking fluids, for example, Blender would just show you when you finish the bake, it would say, oh, all complete, and then a number, but the number didn't specify anything. Okay, now it tells you that it's our seconds. It's always measured in seconds. Also, when you cancel the bake, it would tell you bake cancelled. Yeah, but where, when? And now it tells you frame 19. Yay! So small UI improvements by Bartos. Thank you. These changes are always welcome. So thank you. What else? Oh, change the topic again. Point clouds. The point clouds. First, again, would this be the title of a new Blender Today? Point clouds have been around for a while in the shape of experimental features. If you go to preferences, you would have seen under experimental, you would have seen here point cloud object for many versions ago. Like, it's been around for a while. Not anymore. As you can see, it's no longer here. It is a new item in your Shift A menu. So the Shift A menu that we look at every day is now a bit longer because point clouds are there. By default, it adds like a default cube worth of points. And now there is a there are more tools for it. So basically, first you can go into edit mode. Amazing. You can select, box select, move, rotate, like everything that you would expect, but even proportional editing. So you can select one point here, enable proportional editing, and then move these points proportionally. Isn't that amazing? Point clouds, yay! Nice. So welcome point clouds to the family of objects, official objects in Blender. 4.5, again, another reason for 4.5 to be huge. I'm happy to see all these improvements in an LTS release, because I bet many people are going to stick with 4.5 LTS before switching to 5. 5 is going to be a big release. Like, I think 5, unlike, well, 3.0 was also fairly big. 4.0 was maybe a bit less big. It has features, but it wasn't like Blender 4. Like 3.6 still used in many productions, and like not that many reasons to switch to Blender 4. But I think Blender 5 is gonna be big as an impact. Although I expect people to switch from 4.5 LTS to 5.2 LTS, maybe. Give it some time for 5.0 to settle. Okay, let's move on. What else? We are in letter P already. PyAPI, Python, Doc, RNA, refactors. So many refactors. Always welcome refactors, but scary too. Release changes and time to move on. All right. Who here uses, raise your hand, an emoji, if you use Blender for printing? It's not 3D printing, but actually like printing. So where you need like pixel density information, you need to save your renders with a specific DPI setting. Well, now you can from Blender, because Blender now supports setting pixel density as part of the render pipeline. So you have a new setting. Let's see it in Blender. So I'm gonna not the old buggy Blender. Let's open this Blender. All right, so I have Blender here. I'm gonna save an image. Well, on the output settings, I should see somewhere here in the output panel, output, pixel density. Pixel density now has two options. By default is the 72 pixels per inch, but now you can also choose pixels per meter, pixels per inch, per centimeter, or even custom, and you need to specify a base for that. So this is basically an inch in metric. This is huge. Like Node Spaghetti says, this is huge. This is at least 300 ppi, right? So nice. So ping, ping, and then this will be saved in Blender as part of your settings. So when you open it in GIMP or Krita or any other software, should all work. Nice. Now Spaghetti, I had to set pixel density with Image Magic before. Thank you, Blender. Yay. Thank you, Blender, and thank you, Campbell Barton, which was the developer behind this. And Campbell Barton has been working for Blender since 20 years, maybe? I don't know. At least, I don't know. He's one of the longest developers that have been working for Blender. And you can contribute to keep Campbell on board and everybody else if you help funding freedom for Blender. So I never actually plug in the development fund, but it's a nice segue. And people have been donating. Look at that. 6 minutes ago, someone donated 25 bucks. Half an hour ago, 100 bucks, 5 bucks, 25. Like, people are donating, so we're really grateful. But as you can see, the corporate actually went down. It used to be 36 or 35. I think for Blender, in the press release, I usually mention the press release. I mention 35 organizations and 7,300 individuals. But now we have 3 less organizations, corporates, supporting Blender, but we have 200 more individuals, which is not enough to cover the corporates, because one corporate, I don't know, donating 50,000, 35,000 is not the same as many. Like, this could be anything, right? This could be people donating €5 from. So anyways, if you can donate, this is what keeps this alive and this show alive. I'm actually paid by the Blender Development Fund because I work on not just this. This is my side quest. I work on the UI and many other parts of Blender, communication and websites and all sorts of things. Okay, let's continue. Sculpt. Yeah, we have news for sculpting. Manifold, again, back Manifold. This library is now used when using the trim tool. So you can actually trim, you know, the trim tool, like when you want, let's see it in action. Come on, we are live. Why Why else are we doing this live is just for showing things here. So okay, I have my mesh. It's super detailed, and not long ago, if you use the trim tools, for example, let's see, line trim. So if I draw a line, this would have, be a bit slow actually. Depends on how many vertices you had. But now this operation is now using the manifold. You can change back to the other ones like exact. You can see how long it takes. I release the mouse. You see how long it takes. Float 1, it's slightly less, so I release the mouse. Okay, sometimes it is fast. Okay, but you see how manifold. I mean, I could remesh and make this my life hard, but I don't want to do this while streaming. It is awesome. The manifold library is now, within a few weeks, is now everywhere. Sculpt, trim tools, mesh, boolean, the boolean modifier, and the boolean geometry node. So cool. So cool. Next. More sculpting improvements. The list of brushes that can use the tilt functionality. Actually, many changes that are related to tilt when you tilt. Now apparently there were a few brushes that didn't support it, and they were in the list, so now they are. Clay thumb was actually a case. The strength factor of the tilt value, you could use negative values, which it wasn't the case. Basically, there is a task about moving pen tilt support out of experimental. This is one of those features. Started by Pablo Vazquez 5 years ago, November 2020. Gee, those are the days. Were the days. Okay, next, optimizations. What is this? When sculpting high resolution meshes, performance when sculpting basically is now faster. An example with sculpting a small portion of a mesh with multi-res with about 12 million vertices got improved between 1.25 and 145 times faster. So nice. So you should be able to sculpt a bit faster now on high resolution meshes. Then another BBH improvement related also to this. We can look at the table here by Nicola Desi, and the radius of the brush is what it will define how much faster it is, but overall around 1.2 times faster. Nice. And if related to tilt, again, if the tilt is not supported or the cursor is inactive, you're gonna see it in the cursor itself. The calculation of the clay strips brush has been refactored because there was a bug report actually where clay strip brush leaves cracks on a mesh. Apparently it would leave like a sculpt cracks. So if you run into this, where you will be sculpting on your mesh, and you have the cracks on your mesh, well, that should be fixed. Look at this. Almost looks like one of those hard ops add-ons that make these kind of tech shapes. Anyways, more optimizations. The clay strips brush is now about 1.2 times faster, also thanks to Nicola. So thank you, Nicola. Nice. And more improvements. Shader. All right, again, this is a different topic. So shader, the experimental node previews are now limited to the node trees because they were everywhere, and only the experimental option was only tied to material shading nodes. So that's a fix actually. All right, how often do we see the list never ends? We haven't even reached UI changes yet. How often do we see changes to shape keys? Not that often. There is a new operator to duplicate a shape key. Yeah, it just adds a copy of the active shape key with the data and the settings, including the lock status. It would appear right below the source, and it would be made active. So new operator for shape keys. Nice. Another UI improvement in the spreadsheet is that some the domains that are not present in your geometry, such as, I don't know, if you're working on a mesh and you're not using grease pencil or volumes or instances, the items are now going to be grayed out in the spreadsheet. So you can see at a glance what matters, basically what has data or not. Super nice. And what else? Also, I noticed a glitch the other day. This is not a bug report, but maybe. No, it's not a bug report, but I noticed maybe someone knows why. But you can't click on you can click on curve, grease pencil, point cloud, but you can't click on volume grids or instances for some reason. So I think I need to report that. I think we also need to make the disabled but text not have shadows, because it makes it more muddy and harder to read. I think without shadows they're easy to read, because the disabled text makes it 50% transparent, which lets you see through. Okay, next. That one was by Folk, by the way. Thanks, Folk. All right, user interface changes. There's no item that has a like emoji here, because I think pretty much everything in the UI module needs to have needs to be mentioned because it's UI, you see it. So how are you holding? Are we good? Nearly 2 hours. This is what happens when I skip one. I'm not gonna skip the next one, I hope. The next one is it's gonna be the 6th. Next week there is a holiday actually here, Liberation Day. Interesting. And then the next one was gonna be the 13th of May, which no, I'm gonna be here, of course. So we're gonna have a regular Blender today. That's just wanted to check just in case. Save some confusion there. And let's continue. The user interface. Several changes. macOS, when the cursor, it has this cursor when the app is busy but it's not responding, it's not unresponsive. There's a specific cursor for that. So now Blender will let you know that it's expected to be waiting for something. The status bar, it's gonna show you now some information when you're splitting. It's gonna actually show you things. Before it would be just empty, and now, well, as you're splitting, you get some information. You get to see like shortcuts that you can press to duplicate into a new window, to snap. Many people don't know that they can actually snap these transforms. You know, if you hold Control, you can clack 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 snap it. Next, curves and grease pencil. Okay, this is a fix, but also a feature. Let's see. So the curves data block didn't show any. So you maybe they're not going to notice this, but basically the values, the transform values here, were incorrect for the new data block. Well, new, it's been around for years, but the new data block curves in Blender. Now this works. And also the stats, which I'm probably going to show in a bit. The operator called hide collection is now renamed to hide other collection, which is what actually does. It's a bit counterintuitive. It should hide it hides the other collections, not the one you have active. The panel header grip now uses an icon. Probably not going to notice a difference. Now it should work as should look better in some theme combinations, because now it's an icon, so it should look just an icon. Before this was hard-coded, actually. There was a little function that would loop through 8 times and draw 8 tiny, well, 16 triangles, because it would be once for the not triangles, cubes. One for each, and then the shadow. Overkill, total overkill. The outline width of the editors can now be scaled. So now you can specify how wide you want the separation between the editor. So border width, basically. The PR has a wrong name. There was a glitch where if you save, I think I mentioned it on BlenderToday before, that in the add-ons, yes, so basically if you choose, like you change the theme and then you reset, it would still show the theme there, even though it was reset. But now it tells you preset, so it goes back to how it is. So nice. Let's see. Filter, oh my, this is a feature. I wonder if any user is gonna use it now, because this was introduced for a change in the sequencer editor. I already want to use it somewhere else for Blender 5, but now, have you ever run into, I don't know, a situation where you have too many of these tabs and you just don't want to see them? Well, now you can hide them. We have 2 ways of hiding them. One is with the drop down up here, the popover. You can just hide the tabs you don't want. You can even have no tabs at all if you want, just bare bones. Or just have the tool, or just have the scene. Anything basically, whatever it makes sense, right? So if I delete this object, I shouldn't see anything because I don't have any object selected, but you can have it very specific. And I guess if you couple this with the pinning, then you know that now you can have the object here, and you can always have the light tab there open. Or you can do that with object data, or just object and object data. So it allows you to organize your scene a lot better, I think, because here you can just go back to the default, just turn on everything, and then just continue your work. This I think this was introduced, I mentioned, for the video sequence editor, because the video sequence, in the future, not that far future, the video sequence editor is gonna have its own section here for strips. The idea is that there will be, well, also for sequences, but that's a prototype still. But strip. So right now, when you select the strip, you see the settings here, the current strip. But usually everywhere else in Blender, you see it here. So if you have this way, you can make this kind of setups where you can have a whole section just for the strip, the current strip. You can have modifiers, you can see them here. So the overall UI can be improved than this. Right now, this looks a bit of a hack, right? And if you have a strip selected, you could use the regular UI. So super nice. But yeah. Something I would like to propose maybe for Blender 5 is to even hide the tool. The second way that you can edit this is by right-clicking on the place where you want to hide it, which is the navigation bar, and then hide it. So the tool, having the tool duplicate is, you're still going to be able to, of course, to tweak it from here. But here there will be option, because sometimes it gets on the way, people are confused. So yeah. What else? Region scale highlighting. Yeah, so now when you have a region that you want to scale, Blender is going to show you a indicator of that region. So you know what you're doing. Before it would be just blank. You don't know exactly what you're changing unless you change it. So nice. The scroll bars, were completely hidden in the past, even though there was content in the sidebar here, in this sidebar. I think I mentioned it, no, I mentioned it on a module meeting. So this is a quality of life improvement, basically, because before, yeah, there would be no scroll bars. Now there is. They're very hard to see by default, unless you have something bright, but that's just a theme thing that we need to address. But now you see the scroll bar there, so you know if you're missing content or not. Okay. Oh, this one is an improvement from right click select. It was proposed there. So basically, you probably run into this in the past. You are using Blender, and then you open a menu for the editors, for example. And the moment you leave this area, Blender will just like remove the disappear. The menu will disappear. The menu will be closed. Now Blender is a lot more forgiving in this thing. So if you're, you see, you can go like all the way to here. Yeah. So it's a lot more forgiving. So you can with the pen especially, you notice that now you can, especially for these menus that are super wide, Blender will not auto close so quickly. So that's super nice. This was actually on right click select. Someone mentioned it, and then I looked it up, and then I mentioned to Harley, and he worked on it. If the menu is already open, the padding also is gonna be a lot bigger. So the area around it's gonna stay open a lot more. Next. Yeah, there was a 1 pixel fix when you were full screen, which is very annoying. Not anymore. The active spline panel has been moved into the viewport. It used to be only on the properties on the sidebar, but yeah, it's just confusing. Now it was a bug report actually, so now it's been moved to the viewport, but it makes more sense. And there's no picture, and I approved it without a picture. Anyway, I compiled it. The contrast of the in the light theme, the contrast of the scroll bars has been improved. It was just basically really bad. The auto run script setting was on by default, so it was off if you open Blender, but if you reset the value, it will be turned on again, off, and that's really bad. Auto run script should always be off by default, so that has been fixed. The geometry panel apparently was being shown when viewing the render result, which you don't want that. You're viewing a render result. The Gizmos have a action zone, which is now slightly bigger. So this is how it used to be. Very close to the Gizmo, and now there is a lot more forgiving. You can, especially when you work with the pen, it's a lot bigger. This change, by the way, is only when you're working with a pen, when Blender detects that you're using a pen. Include button type comparison to preserve the UI. No, this is internal stuff. To redraw or not redraw the UI. Hide relative paths in the file selector when it's not supported. Hey, that's nice. I missed this one. It didn't have a pull request. It was just, yeah, the relative path option shouldn't be showing up when there is no, when it's not supported by in the file browser. What else? Minimum height for the timeline marker operations. Yes, the minimum height was just too much, and I mentioned this on the live stream. I think this is where it comes from. I mentioned it in the previous live stream. When using on a Mac, the option key and the command arrow input movements are now allowed. So yay for better support for Mac navigation in your inputs. This one is a eye candy, basically. So have you ever noticed that Blender, when you open Blender, it would, well, depends on the speed of your computer, but on older computers, Blender would just get stuck on a window like this, basically. Gray, and until recently it was light gray. So if you were working in the dark, yeah, Blender would just open and blast you with light. And now this is no longer the case, because now Blender would actually display the color of the theme. So if you're using a dark theme, this is the default. Now Blender will just show dark, the light theme will show light, and any color of a theme will show you the color, the background color. So it blends with the window border. Super nice. And this is shown on a Mac, but it also should be for Windows 11 as well. Yeah, this looks like a big block of white, but I made a task that maybe we could show actually the Blender logo in it. This also, I mean, somebody suggested to have a progress bar, but Blender should not show you progress bar because it should be fast to open. It should be fast. It should be blazing fast. You shouldn't even see this window, which I think most people don't. Well, I don't know if most, but a large amount of people don't even see it. Like I don't see it, for example, on this computer. If I close Blender, well, I'm not starting call, right? But if I open Blender, it's instant. So yeah, let's continue. You probably see it if you use a lot of add-ons, maybe. Or if it's the first time opening Blender since you restarted, rebooted, maybe. Where are we? Minimum height, theme colors. The tablet drag threshold. So basically how long it takes you when you click and drag on a gizmo, or in general in Blender, it's now different between if you have a pen or if you have a mouse. So with the mouse, it gives you some room because the mouse is more precise usually, and the pen is not so much. So the threshold is different. A lot of work has been put into pen support lately by Harley, and now the Sculpt module. Pen tilt values, consistent pen tilt values across platforms and device drivers. Nice. Because Blender is preparing for tablet support, apparently. Geometry nodes. Use viewport icon for viewer node. Small change, just cosmetic change, but it makes more sense because this is what you use. Like, this is what Blender usually uses, and the eye icon is usually for the preview inside of the in geometry nodes. In everywhere else is for the preview of the node itself, whereas geometry nodes viewer only works in the viewport, so it actually makes sense to use this. Improve the default position of shader nodes. Apparently yeah, ever notice that when you open Blender, it will be like met with halfway the half of the node? No longer the case. The viewport icon is now used to indicate the active viewer. Nice. On Windows, you may notice that, speaking of this startup screen, that there will be a white flash during startup. And sorry, I'm opening the window because it's just running out of air here. It's actually pretty warm for the Netherlands these days. You would see on Windows a white flash during startup because Blender would try to draw eagerly without even getting some content. Someone like, okay, what is it? What's my theme? What's my content? So yeah, that should go. What else? Also, small tweak, but light themes now should see a better indicator on this type of scroll bars that you can resize. Then the pen Y tilt expected direction now has been inverted, which should match all WinTab, Windows Ink, Wayland, and Mac OS, I guess. Direction, nice. For consistency. Then the default position of the shaders in the startup node, as I already mentioned, but this is for the startup node. Then the label of asset browser parameters has been, it's now more clear. So basically it used to be called like this. And I mentioned this in I think in a couple episodes ago. Instance collections would say link or append. What do you think this feature does? I'll let you think about it. Well, this has nothing to do. It doesn't link or append. Basically, it's gonna instance the collections if or when linking or when appending. So this is what it does actually, when linking and when appending. So now this is a lot more clear. So thank you, Nika, for this improvement. Speaking of labels, this is also pretty nice. The positioning of the labels and the icons is now better. I don't know if you're gonna notice it's subtle, but it's related to another improvement. So before, the tooltips will be like the spacing, horizontal spacing will be too wide, the vertical spacing will be wrong, no padding around the text, but now there is actually padding that is consistent across the grid. Nice. Some other changes related to that coming soon, such as 2-line. This sounds like something small, but it's a quality of life improvement that Blender needs since forever, because labels in general in Blender were never really supported 2-line, but now it does. So basically, before you would just only see the beginning of whatever was the name of this asset, and that's it. You were limited by that. It wasn't even gonna show how it ends, like usually Blender does. Not anymore. Now it's gonna wrap into 2 lines if there is enough space. So you can actually read the content of your assets. Yay, the name of your asset. So super nice. And when for example, especially when you have items that have like extension. For example, here you see license. What is this? Okay, I can guess it's a text file because of the icon, but now you can actually read it's a text file. And when it doesn't fit, Blender is smart enough, or Julian Eisel is smart enough because he implemented this. The first line will always show, so in this case license, and the second line is gonna show the beginning, an ellipsis, and then the actual ending. So you always get to see the extension. Brilliant. Again, another example here. How do you know which format this is? Well, now you know. Now you know. This would be like screencast, and what is the ending of this? Now you see first line always full, second line ellipsis, and you get to see the extension. So cool. Small things, but this took so much work. So much work. Thank you, Julian. And Harley and all the and Andy and everyone that is involved in testing and giving feedback. Next, Compositor. In the, well, this is UI/Compositor. So the Compositor. So when you click on the viewer node, when you actually click on the icon, now it's gonna activate the viewer node. It's related to what I mentioned before. Another UI change is on the save startup dialog. The name, the label is gonna be a bit more descriptive. The label used to say override main startup file, and it would say make the current file the default startup Blender file. So For a new user, the word default startup, like, it's a lot more confusing than just telling you what it will do, which is Blender will start next time as it is now. Clear. So, nice one. Also, the template will start next time as it is now. So, it's much more clear. Next. Speaking of descriptive and nice tooltips, this one by Loïc Dautry, Loloc, and a user that is very active on right-click select, and is now making PRs for these kind of improvements in the UI. So the tooltips and the description for the modes, the differentiating modes, has been updated. Instead of saying, like, some of them were like display render preview. What does it mean? So now it actually tells you preview materials using predefined environment lights. Hey, it's actually descriptive. And the same for, yeah, it used to be called just preview mode. And now render also has a definition and the wireframe mode. The light theme was fixed. Well, one of the main issues that it was like, this is the light theme, and it's not really light, like it's gray, and I'm not gonna change that for Blender 4.5 because it's 4.5. It should look like 4.4, 4.3, and the rest. For Blender 5, I want to give it a pass and make it actually light. But one thing that was bothering me is that it was actually missing an oversight when the option to color the editor border was added. It was never added to this theme, and this color border is supposed to match the same color of the top bar and the status bar, so they blend in, and now they do. So before, after, small thing, and a few other tweaks, but small tweaks. Clarify Boolean solver descriptions. Yeah, make it clear. The just fixing on some tooltips on the booleans, which we already seen. Another tool was renamed by me. I was using the tree. Well, I was making the release notes of Blender 4.4, and there was a change to this, to the trees to quads. I know trees is short for triangles, quads short for quadrilateral, something. But the user will have to search for trees, TRIS. Not very convenient. So now the tool is actually called triangles to quads, which is the name that it had before. Oh, now I don't get a link to the PR. There was a PR here. Anyways, this was renamed to triangles to quads. You can still search trees to quads because that's the name of the operator. The API hasn't changed, so that will still yield this result. Harley made it so the line breaks into new lines can also happen on conditional punctuation, some specific characters that will make a line break. Nice. And here we have some of them: comma, colon, semicolon, Greek question mark, Armenian full stop. Nice. And a few more for path breaking line characters. So the tooltips don't go forever, but they actually line break where they can. Remove Gizmo 3D part hit space scaling. This is related to the Gizmo, but it's all part of the same change. And expose, yeah, no, this is not really UI, is it? Read attributes, change? No, for some reason it's in UI. And Jesus, so we still have, okay, let's continue. Let's do everything today. USD, that was it for user interface. USD, animated camera property import. Imports in the following animated data from USD geom cameras: focal length, dove distance, dove f-stop, clip start and end, tilt shift X and Y, and aperture sizes. with some caveats. So read the description. Let's talk about the video sequence editor, which also have seen a lot of improvement this week. First, we have a completely refactored sleep operator. So the S key in the video sequence editor now has been rewritten with some new features, not just a rewrite. One, it's a modal key map that shows you interactively what you can do with it in the status bar. So let's open this in a new. So you can see in the status bar now it shows you things that are going on. In the top, it shows you the more information. Before it used to show you just a value, I think. Now it shows you the frames and the seconds on which it's offset. So that's really important when you are dealing with audio. You want to keep that in mind. Also, the overlay, the offset overlay, even if you have it disabled, it will always show now when you are transforming, so you know how much more you can go. There is a new option for clamping. You can turn it on and off by pressing the letter C for clamp, and it will basically allow you to go further or like over the limits, or limited to the content. As you can see here, moving the mouse over to the limits at the very beginning, if you see, it doesn't let you go into empty space. Nice. Clamping in the new, so that's it, right? Fixes, model key map, overlays for offsets and clamping. So cool. Thank you, John Kirill Swenson. Also, John, thank you for making an icon for the blade tool. Yep, the blade tool. This tool, there was no indicator that you were in this tool. You just need to click and it would just happen. If something would be cut somewhere under the mouse. Now there is a custom cursor for it, so great. However, it still doesn't show you where is the cut gonna be, which can be a bit confusing. And this is being worked on by so basically I propose to have like a line where the cut is going to happen, because it could happen that the cut is very much somewhere else, right? Like not under the cursor. So as you can see here, it's just I click here and it cuts here because this is where the frame is. Anyway, actually maybe we could the grid could, when you zoom in, the grid could also be a bit more useful. It could actually show you frames in a more subtle, and then seconds, like an adaptive grid for the zoom. Next, hide, reveal strip operators in the sequence preview. Yeah, the preview of the sequencer now supports more operators. In this case, the hide or reveal. So you can just press H. No, H no. Mute? No, H. Yeah, yes, it makes sense. Mute is for nodes. It makes all sections in Blender. So yeah, you can hide and unhide them from the preview. Super, super nice. Also, the mirror operator is now available in the preview, thanks to Ramon Cloak. And you can now mirror. So when you use the operator, the model operators for mirroring. Then a small UI change that would make things a lot more clear. So basically, when you I mentioned this in the last live stream, in the previous episode, that the text could be improved to it's a bit more compact, and the result of what happens earlier in the tooltip on the text, because that means that if we don't have much more room, like if the window is small and you don't have much room to show the entire label, then you can at least see what happened. So that's why I think having those values at the beginning of the reports or operators or labels is always best. And another one, which you're not gonna notice, but you will now that I mention. Let me, let's see. Do you notice anything strange in here? You see? Scaling up, scaling to the side. Do you notice anything strange? Well, if you are not a sequence user, you probably wouldn't tell. But now, scaling the editor, the video sequence editor, doesn't mess up your zoom anymore. Previously, and maybe I have 4.4 here. If you had a strip, well, not even without a strip, you see how scaling would affect. So if I had, let's say I had a text strip here, right? Beautiful, I have it here, and then changing this would like mess my zoom, and not anymore. Now, Zen editor, so nice. Anyway, love this little change. You're probably not gonna notice, but now that I told you, probably you will. Unless you are a really big fan of the editor changing zoom when you zoom in and out. I mean, isn't that how the viewport does? No, yeah, the viewport is as expected, right? You just, well, horizontally it tries to fit the content there, but vertically it doesn't. Interesting. Anyways, let's completely switch topics to Vertex Paint. These are one of the latest few changes. Vertex Paint now allows you to create undo steps. That is awesome. We all make mistakes. So thank you, Sean Kim. Allow the editor actions to create undo steps. Then in the viewport, two changes. One, show extras now works to show you the space, texture space, and bounds. Before the show extras wouldn't do anything, so now it does. And a performance improvement on the calculation of object box selection. If you're in object mode, you box select. This change made it around 100 times faster. So if you ever noticed how box selecting objects was slow, try now. Something that used to take 6 seconds to select, now it's 60 milliseconds. Nice. Felipe asks, is 4.4.2 out? No. Well, depends. If you're using some providers, you will see that it's out, but it's not officially out. It contains one crash that is very easy to get in the compositor. So I don't recommend using 4.4.2 unless you, well, no, wait, because a 4.4.3 is coming either tomorrow. Yeah, I'm using 4.4.2. Actually, yes, I am using 4.4.2, and actually I can show you the crash. I already showed the crash here. So basically this is 4.4.2, as you can see here. And in the compositor, I can close Blender by simply dragging this. Ta-da! That's it. Blender quit unexpectedly. Don't use it. Just wait for 4.4.3. It's coming this week. Probably Thursday. Or, yeah, I don't think they're gonna wait another week. All right. And speaking of crashes on Windows, if you've been using the daily builds, you may have noticed that when you get a crash, in the really unexpected, unusual case that you get a crash, you will see this window, which allows you to restart Blender. Nice. View the crash log or report the bug. This is basically the same as, it's not going to send the bug right away. It's going to open the browser, and it's just probably the same as doing this. Basically, it just takes you here with some more information about Blender, your operating system, your drivers, and that's it. No personal data, of course. And that's it. Actually, the last change I wanted to mention is that Vulkan, it's no longer considered experimental. And I wanted one of them. So Vulkan yeah, the backend. I can't show you basically because I'm using a Mac, so it doesn't apply here. But if you go on Windows or Linux, you go to Preferences, System, you will see a panel here called Display Graphics, I think, and you can change OpenGL to Vulkan. And if you love Blender, if you like Blender, if you want to see Blender improve, and you don't mind testing things, consider changing it. And I'm gonna share a real use case, a real scenario. What happened yesterday? This weekend, I was changing something on my Blender at home, and I really haven't noticed that I've been using Vulkan experimental for weeks now, and I haven't noticed any. I have a good computer at home, so I didn't notice any slowdowns or like crashes or anything weird. No, especially no crashes, but also no slowdowns. I've been using geometry nodes and hair tools and things like that, and I didn't notice that I was actually using Vulkan at home. So far for me, it was actually pretty neat. But yeah, I would recommend, if you would like to help Blender improve Vulkan, to use it, because the developer, the main one that's working on it, Jeroen, mentioned that he's not getting enough bug reports. We're not getting enough bug reports on Vulkan. So either Vulkan support is already awesome, or not enough users are using it. And that's an issue, because Blender 4.5 is going to have it as an option, but Blender 5 or 5.1 might have Vulkan as default. OpenGL will still be there, of course, but might have it on as by default, because so far it actually seems to make Blender load faster, has more potential for improvements in performance. It doesn't seem to have any drawbacks, so might as well be on by default. But that's for Blender 5 or 5.1. It hasn't been decided yet. It's up to you to test it and provide feedback. If you have any feedback, you can go to the DevTalk forums, devtalk.blender.org, or you can also just, if you find an issue, you can report the bug. On DevTalk, there is a thread called Feedback and Testing, where you can mention if things are going well or not, or I mean, I guess just posting it works okay, then it's not that. I mean, it's useful, but it's not that. But if you notice that it's much faster and you can actually prove that it's faster, that would be a nice thing to give some life to this feedback and testing. I think someone here did it, and I already use it very fast and enjoy it. I did some tests, but yeah, some users here are actually reporting that but this is, I don't find any issues. And like, I opened a variety of files, I did not find any issues. The build was stable, the render image looked correct. Yeah, I suspect that if you did a blind test, I would not have been able to tell you which backend was Coke and which one was Pepsi. Excellent work, super nice, thank you, Eevee. Anyway, that's it. That is all for today. I think it's been over 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Well, there are probably some questions in the community. How many are they? Oh, wait. Let's see. There's 6 comments on Blender community. So let's see. Are there any? Okay, so, all right, nice. One of them is thank you, actually, by Paul. Thank you. Prince of Flood says, Hola Pablo, I would really like nested the electrics in Blender for some realistic glass. Lucas Turner is working on it here. Good news, because Lucas Turner is actually a paid developer of Blender Development Fund, so that's good. From the draft, it looks like we have to wait for Material X updates until he implements it for Blender. Maybe. For which Blender would this be a milestone for? You probably are more aware of it, where this is at the moment, because I am not following this task in particular. I just know that Material X is gaining more and more traction in Blender, so Shouldn't be that long, but you can always add emojis of support there. Next question. Hello, Pablo. I was compiling my render in VSE the other day, and when importing an image sequence, I was not importing in the order of the frame number. It was weird. Should I respect the frame number rather than the date modified? Yes. Although, no, wait. There's an option for that, I think. Isn't it? If I add a image sequence, use placeholders, set view transform, replace selection. No, it's no option. Use placeholders. If it doesn't, this means that it will add placeholders when it doesn't find the frame numbers, but this should work. You can always report it as a bug. Next, Hoy Pablo Namdampot says, I just wanted to thank you for inspiring me to get into Blender. My journey began when I first saw Sintel, that is 14 years ago. And after hiatus, I use it for VFX. Total lurker on the dev channels for the best part of the decade, but BlenderToday made the Blender devs, starting with you, a lot more approachable. Nice. I still lurk here until I found just something I couldn't live without fixing. It took a year and I'm still learning C++ for this, but I hope to keep contributing. Maybe something a little more normal next, possibly normal correction. Nice. So yes, actually we've seen some of your patches here in the show, so congrats on that. I'm happy to hear that it had an influence. Sadek says, Hola Pablo, is there any reason that relative shape keys and absolute shape keys are mutually exclusive? You can use one or the other, which translates to giving up on the latter because the former is basically mandatory. No, but I always wonder why even bothering with absolute shape keys. Especially if you could have this as like attributes, we wouldn't even need that. Right-click menus don't follow the OS convention of staying open no matter where the mouse is, and the same for the buttons that open menus. Yes, here are examples. Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is a Blender feature. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's a it's meant to, it's a Blender thing. It's a Blender thing. Sorry, it's by design. It's not a bug that, oh no, no, it's by design. It's a way to dismiss things in the same way that Blender, you can dismiss things by right-clicking. That's not very industry standard. You usually escape. In Blender, you can do escape and right-clicking. And I kind of like it this way. Maybe it should be an option. But yeah, like a user preference. And the last question, hello Pablo, a few years ago, there was a blog post about handling high poly through a separate editor that was discussing. Is it still happening? I don't think so. There hasn't been any. I think it was on the asset creation pipeline by Pablo Navarro, right? Was it? Yes, Pablo Navarro no longer works for Blender since many years, and that work hasn't been taken over. Some of it has actually. We've seen some improvements today, but no, not this one in particular of the high poly. Large scenes. Oh yeah, this is related to this, but no, not. All right, that is all. I think it's way over time, 2.5 hours, and it's almost getting dark here. So thanks everyone for staying until the end. Thanks for the camera to not fail today, because I was expecting, I already had my the backup camera just in case, but no, it didn't break. All right, I will see you again in just a couple of weeks, 2 weeks. In the meantime, please, if you're using Blender 4.4, updates when 4.4.3 comes out soon, in a couple of days. And if you see 4.4 people using 4.4.2, let them know, because it's like, hey, I heard from the Blender HQ that they shouldn't use it because it crashes the compositor, and they can test it for themselves. I think that's it. Thanks for the nice messages about me disappearing last time. Last week I was I was sick. I had a small medical intervention, and I'm fine now. So thanks for the kind messages and the emails and the emojis and the everything. I have nothing else to say other than take care and thanks for watching. I will see you again next week for this show that we've been calling Blender Today Live. Watch your ear holes. I hope it wasn't too loud. Thanks everyone. I'll see you